personally living in Mexico, when I speak English, people are like, well, ¿por qué hablas inglés? Why are you speaking English if you're in Mexico? When I'm here home and I'm speaking Spanish, people are like, well, you know, you're in America, aren't you? It's just like, it's like we never belong. It's like, ni de aquí, no soy ni de aquí, ni de allá. And it's like,
can never satisfy.
Yeah, you can never satisfy people. But what I realize is that, like, that in itself, to me, it's a sense of belonging. Like, being a little bit from here and being a little bit from there, it's a sense of belonging. And like, I personally take a lot of pride in that. I take a lot of pride in being Mexican and being American and being Mexican-American together and speaking English and speaking Spanish. Hey, book tickets to your fight. My nephews. Oh, man.
My name's Denisa. I'm a professional boxer, born and raised in Los Angeles, Mexican-American.
Sick.
I'm Janely Farias, professional soccer player, Mexican-American, born in California. I now live in Mexico City. Call me Güera.
Well, that's fine.
Güera. Oh, yeah.
I'm Cuco, or Omar Baños. I was born in Inglewood, Mexican-American. I make music. My dad's from DF. My mom's from, not Mexico City. They don't call it DF anymore. And my mom's from Puebla.
Cool.
So, yeah.
My dad is Mexican, born in Tijuana, Mexico. Came here when he was 7 years old, and my mom is born in the United States. How about your parents?
My parents were born in Mexico. My dad in Jalisco, my mom in Michoacan. I mean, they migrated to California. My mom when she was like 6, my dad when he was a teenager.
My dad, he came when he was like 18. Damn, they're gonna if they watch this interview, they're gonna be mad. I don't know all the details. But they came as like teenagers, like 18 pretty much. And like
Why are they gonna be mad?
I don't know, because if I don't remember exactly the age, like they came.
Oh, you're gonna say something they did or something.
Yeah, nah, but my grandpa actually was like the person to come first on like my mom's side, and like all my dad's family stayed in Mexico, but he like would come and go, and then one day like my mom was just like, all right, you know, like I think I'll just come with you.
So how do you guys use your platform, what you guys do in your careers to show your Mexican culture? Like, how do you guys show that?
That's a solid question.
Pride and
well, personally, I'm very outspoken about a lot of things, and I try my best to do it in English and in Spanish. I grew up speaking Spanish, my whole life. Right? I was raised with it. You know, I grew up in a very Mexican home. Everything I've done is in English, studying, friends, whatever. So, like, I naturally think in English. But when I moved to Mexico 2.5 years ago, I realized that if I really wanted to, like, you know, be more impactful in the Mexican community, that my Spanish needed to be as good as my English. Mm-hmm. So I started like listening to, you know, books in Spanish, reading more in Spanish. Google Translate is my best friend. If I don't know something, I'm looking it up.
Right, same here.
And I've noticed it's made like a difference in like my reach, I think. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that you don't speak Spanish, but you understand it.
Yeah, I don't speak Spanish. My dad's first language is Spanish. He learned Spanish when he came to America as a child. I grew up in a household with only my mom because my parents divorced around the time I was born. So my mom didn't speak Spanish. She was self-taught, taught herself Spanish because, you know, working 2 jobs, you know, working in East Los Angeles, there was a mixture of just so many different people. But yeah, now that I'm older, you know, I try to learn. I still try to get into knowing more about, you know, our culture and speaking Spanish a lot better. I understand it, I just don't speak it. Like my grandma, she didn't speak English, but she understood English. And I didn't speak Spanish, but I understood Spanish, so that's kind of how we communicated perfectly. But now being a professional athlete, like I feel like now like I want to learn Spanish, and you know it's important, but at a certain age, like sometimes you're like, oh, I'm already you know 20, 25, 30, like
it's harder to learn.
Yeah, it's harder to learn. Then you get lazy. Like I've ordered Rosetta Stone and I've tried but it just didn't work for me. And but now, you know, you get the critics, especially being a professional boxer, like Mexican boxing fans are so prideful and so like they're just insane.
It's the same in soccer.
So yeah, when they find out that I don't speak Spanish, then all of a sudden there's the critics like, oh, you're not a real Mexican because you don't speak Spanish. And
it's a lot to deal with.
Right, yeah. But then when I go to Mexico, because I fought in Mexico, it's like they don't care whether I speak Spanish or not. They're just there to support and watch a good fight. And it's different with Mexican Americans because, you know, Mexicans here in the U.S., like all of a sudden, they're not as supportive of it When in Mexico, it's totally different. They don't care whether you speak it or not. As long as they know you're Mexican, that's all that matters. And as long as you can say "Viva Mexico" way at the end of at the end of the fight, then crowd goes crazy.
And then say that.
You gotta add the way to everything.
Yeah, I feel like with your situation, a situation that falls into coming into like the United States, people that speak Spanish and they're gonna like criticize, I feel like sometimes they don't understand that.
Right.
The story of like your mom being divorced, it's just a situation you fall in. It's not
Exactly. I had no control over it,
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
people grow up in different situations and allows them to not learn about their culture or not learn Spanish. My dad and I were just talking about this on the way over here. I had just recently did an interview where they asked if I spoke Spanish, and I had brought up the whole Selena series. I was watching Selena's series, and how her dad said, it's hard to be a Chicano because you're not American enough for the Americans and you're not Mexican enough for the Americans. And it makes so much sense. It's harder for Mexican Americans because we just can't win either way, There's always...
I think like Selena's she's a Mexican American icon. Like she's the definition of like what the Mexican American dream is.
Yeah.
And like that quote you just said it's huge. I think there's so many people that can identify with it because it's like, personally living in Mexico, when I speak English, people are like, well, ¿por qué hablas inglés? Why are you speaking English if you're in Mexico? When I'm here home and I'm speaking Spanish, people are like, well, you're in America, aren't you? And it's just like, it's like we never belong. It's like, ni de aquí, no soy ni de aquí, ni de allá. And it's like...
Can never satisfy.
Yeah, you can never satisfy people. But what I realize is that, like that in itself, to me, it's a sense of belonging. Like being a little bit from here and being a little bit from there, it's a sense of belonging. And like, I personally take a lot of pride in that. I take a lot of pride in being Mexican and being American and being Mexican-American together and speaking English and speaking Spanish. And I think that I have a lot of teammates on my Mexican national team who don't speak Spanish fluently because they're like me, Mexican-American. And I don't think it makes them any less Mexican at all. So like in your case, I think like what matters is like what drives you, your passion, your background, because at the end of the day, that's what made you who you are today.
Right.
If people are getting mad because you're not giving an interview in Spanish or whatever, like who cares,
Right, yeah.
Like,
I mean, I fight like a Mexican. I have the Mexican blood, Mexican heart. Like,
yeah.
It's all showing in the ring. So like, I feel like even though like I didn't grow up celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month and celebrating our culture, like not even really celebrating Cinco de Mayo, because I didn't really know like what Hispanic Heritage Month was about or what Cinco de Mayo meant. And being a fighter, I feel like boxing's year round, so I'm actually celebrating our culture every time I step into the ring because
for sure.
I'm fighting somebody from another country all the time. I'm fighting to represent our people and show that pride and show that heart that we have.
Yeah, I feel like it's like you said, like that sense of belonging is kind of like being Mexican, being American, something that's existed for so long. You shouldn't have to like balance it out because it's just like whether you have all these things kind of mixed in your culture. Like it's at the end of the day, it's a variety of like just being Chicano. It's just like you grow up, you speak Spanish, cool. You don't, it's cool because like this is how we grew up, making it feel more open and like not criticize things like. Just think like whether it's too much of this, too much of that.
Yeah. No, you mentioned something like super important, like you said, like variety. There's not just one way to be Mexican or Mexican American or Latin or whatever it is, and like I think like our part of our Mexican culture is like something that defines us. I think is pride, right? We have a lot of pride in what we do and how we do things. And like you said, like when you fight, it's like you're representing that. But I think sometimes it affects us in a negative way because like you said, right, we put ourselves down and it's like, why? Like I can celebrate you for being Mexican American, like, celebrate you for the same thing and I can still like be successful at the same time. And I feel like in our culture, it's like we don't like seeing our own people succeed sometimes. And it sucks. It's like, it's shitty. It just sucks. And I don't know if you guys have like experienced that or what you think about that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I feel like that's something that I would like to see change is just us supporting each other more, no matter what career, whether it's music, whether it's soccer, whether it's boxing, like it's how it should be, We shouldn't put each other down. I feel like shouldn't be as much hate as there is and criticism for not being Mexican enough or
and that's why I think like platforms like this are so important because one of you said there's not many of you. I think we need more representation of our culture, of our people in the spotlight for people that follow to see that, like, you know, if we can do it, like, they can do it too.
Yeah.
Like, we need more of that, you know?
Right.
And that's why I think our voices are, you know, they're so important. And just talking about, like, these things is, like, you know, it's going to make a difference. And personally, growing up, like, I never saw somebody like me, like, on TV or, you know, back then we didn't have so much social media, but so I didn't, like, I feel like I had to, like, learn this myself. But I imagine, like, dang, if I had somebody like me, like, if I had seen somebody like me when I was 10 years old, when I was 15 years old, how much better would my upbringing have been, you know? And
Exactly.
And then you realize like you're the image.
Yeah,
Like,
now
you-
you're the
you
image.
didn't have that. It's just like, oh
Yeah.
damn, like now I'm.
yeah.
Right. That's the best feeling though, is like for us to like not have that growing up, but then now we are that for the younger generation.
Have you guys heard the term Latinx?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I'm really passionate about, so I might go on.
Oh, go
a
for
little
it,
bit more. I'm gay. I identify as a, like, I don't like labels, but I'll say I'm gay for society's purposes. So I represent the LGBTQ plus community. Latinx just it's kind of like an umbrella term that encompasses every person and doesn't discriminate based on gender or sex or anything. It's just, like, to me, it's the most inclusive term that exists to describe the Latinx community or the Latin community. And it's something that I take a lot of pride in because I think that there's more than just being like male or female or being a man or a woman. And a lot of people don't know that, or like they're so close-minded, especially in our culture. Like we think, no, you have to be hombre o tienes que ser mujer. And that's not the case. There's so many people that like identify differently. I think it's important for people to know, you know, like there isn't just one way for us to be. It's just a term that allows everybody to belong.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it's kind of the same stigma like being like Mexican American, like people being pissed off about like if you know or don't know Spanish, and it's like the same thing. I feel like Latinx is like I feel like it just kind of like pisses people off when they don't understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's like just important to give like a little background or context. But it's something that I noticed too. That like our culture, like our people are very like overprotective of like our roots, and they come in here and they're like, well, why Latinx? Why are you trying to change the language? It's like nobody's trying to change the language. I think we just have to evolve, like as people, as humans. Like
Yeah.
we're constantly evolving, and like I feel like our language has to evolve with us too. What are you both like most proud about, like just in general, about our culture?
Most proud, I would say, to just see where the Hispanic culture is right now in 2021 in different careers. I mean, it's really made a huge change, and a lot of barriers have been broken down, I believe, in so many different industries. And as for me, you know, I'm most proud of being in the career that I'm in and being Mexican American, being Hispanic, and breaking down these barriers that have never been broken down from a Hispanic female before. So how about you guys?
For me, I'm most proud of being a gay Mexican American successful woman. It's something that, man, I don't even have words to explain
Yeah.
it. Like I'm trying to think, and I'm just like, oh, I can't explain it. I feel like I've broken every fucking stereotype that exists for the Mexican woman or the Hispanic woman or just women in general, and I'm really, really proud of that. And I think we need more of it, you know. I think we're getting there.
Getting there. What are you most
No,
proud of?
my bad. That's powerful.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's powerful.
No, I can't even I get all emotional, want to cry if I like get too deep into like my passion, and so I get it.
Yeah. I feel like I think being like in like spaces where like in the more higher up when you go to like an office building or something like or like executives, it's cool to see more people behind like more like Hispanic people behind like the direction of what, like of being in charge of like where
Workplaces.
where things are going, you know. It's like it's just important, and it just means that also like I feel like more moms and dads are being taken care of that came from
It's a great way to put it. Definitely. That's something I'm proud of too, is to be able to provide for my parents who have worked so hard to have a better life here, you know. And that's always one thing that I'm sure every successful Hispanic is proud of.
Nah, sick. Thank you guys for the conversation.
Thank you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like some of the topics we could have like kept going and been here for hours.
Yeah.
I know.
And I would have been crying all over camera.
Right?
So,
Everything we talked about, basically, Hispanics are just rising and rising. So
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
no, thank you both too for just opening up and being willing to share.
No,
Thank you
thank you
guys.
too. Yeah. Appreciate you guys.
Now should we go with some Mexican food?
right?
Bro.